All right, everybody. It is Wednesday. You are watching The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Latzia. Get my breakfast off the table. We got a smorgasbord of hashtag content coming at you. So NBA free agency officially opens tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern time. So we have futures bets to discuss, very important ones. NFL division win totals are on the menu because we're entering that time of year where we're going to talk about that kind of stuff to fill this hour show. A DFS preview of the John Deere Classic. That's right. More guys dropping out of that. The field becoming weaker. But if you're smart and listen to our analysts, you're still going to make money. We're going to do the same thing on the diamond. Right after we talk MLB best bets with DraftKings contributors Nick Fryer and Garion Thorne. And Garion, the beefy gentleman on your screen, he is the reason Jared Carrabis and the rest of Red Sox Nation is not saying it today. Well, this guy and then also the Red Sox bullpen is a big reason. Vlad Jr. delivering the walk-off against Boston. Boston now 2-7 against your Blue Jays, Gare Bear. They're 7-16 against the AL East. Congratulations. I know for a fact, because you were tagging me on Twitter in your silly tweets, that you took immense pleasure watching that game last night.
I mean, no, all I wanted to point out is I've often come on here and I've accused DraftKings of being a biased company that, you know, supports Boston-based teams far too much on their social media platforms. And I was just refreshed with how quickly they came out with a shirt commemorating that walk-off hit by Vlad, those 628 shirts. I'm not really sure what those were about. I mean, they must have been about Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s walk-off hit. And honestly, with how quickly it happened, DraftKings must have been making them like around the time like Alejandro Kirk drew that or got that hit, or George Springer drew that walk, or Bo Bichette had that single into right field. I'm not really sure when they started making them, but I just wanted to, again, congratulate DraftKings for, you know, really just overcoming their biases, and I wanted to apologize. That's what I wanted to do today.
Nick Fryer, are you ready to say it yet, dude?
I'm really annoyed because I had the Red Sox, a run line the other day. They ended up not covering that, and then I had a money line yesterday, and then they ended up covering run line as underdog. So not at all frustrated by any of this.
Interesting.
Also, do you like my shirt, by the way, Emerson? I just wanted to make sure you could see it. I know there's the ticker right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
You got one of these.
I see it. I was unable to land U.S. Open tickets. You told me you did not have U.S. Open tickets when it was here 2 weeks ago, yet you started tagging me in your pictures on Twitter of you at the U.S. Open. Sounds great.
Spare. There's a difference.
You're a fraud. You're a coward. Let's get into this segment here. There's a 7-game slate in baseball tonight, main slate. We got a solid chunk of day games, though, going down here, guys. What's an afternoon bet you're interested in placing? Go ahead, Nick.
So the Royals-Rangers games, I'm very interested in. Of course, the Rangers have taken the first two, but the Royals have done a pretty good job of avoiding sweeps throughout the season. Don't get me wrong, they've gotten swept a few times. So that's going to lead me to the total. I'm taking the over in this one. We've got Dane Dunning versus Zach Greinke. When you have Dunning away from Arlington, he has been terrible this season. 6.08 ERA, 8.08 opponent OPS. So as much as I think he's been good this month and hasn't earned a win, I still don't expect him to continue that trend. And then when you look at the other side of this too, the Rangers have been smashing right-handed pitching. Zach Greinke, I know he's done pretty well considering his age and everything like that, but with the Rangers, they got a 32.7% hard contact rate against righties this month, and then a 22.4% line drive rate, and their fly ball rate's greater than their ground ball rate right now. So everything's kind of pointing towards them doing well, and then when you look at their OPS and WOBA, they've been doing pretty well as well against righties.
Gare Bear, what's your baseball bet here for the afternoon slate?
I was looking through the strikeout props, as I want to do, and I think one that really stood out was Eric Lauer. He's only at 4.5 strikeouts in this afternoon matchup against the Tampa Bay Rays, which is a little surprising considering the Rays across the last 2 weeks have the third highest strikeout rate in baseball at 26%. Obviously, Wander Franco returning to that lineup does help them in terms of limiting that strikeout rate. He is hard to get a ball by, but this is still a team that has a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. And Lauer has gone over 4.5 strikeouts in 10 of his 13 starts so far this season. So at just minus 115, I think there's some really nice value taking the over with Lauer, who has been averaging well over a strikeout per inning for the majority of the season.
Speaking of strikeouts, how about Patrick Corbin last night, Garion? What was it you or Steve who were just crapping all over that guy yesterday?
I mean, probably both of us. And then I went on the slate and told Matt Meiselman that he was crazy for wanting to use use Patrick Corbin. It was a rough Patrick Corbin night for us all.
Yeah, it certainly was. Okay, as for tonight here, Gary, and again, 7 games to choose from. So hook me up with your favorite money line bet right meow.
I'm going to take the Twins money line. This is basically even money, minus 110 on both sides. I can understand why. It's a pretty middle-of-the-road pitching matchup between Dylan Bundy and Cal Quantrill, who both, believe me, have their faults. But Bundy's been good his last 2 starts. He's allowed just 2 earned runs across 14 innings pitched. He's really only had like 4 awful starts this season, and aside from that, he's been solid. Obviously, you can't take those away. And generally, those have come on the road where he's pitching tonight. But I think the big differentiator here for me is just the offensive potential of these 2 lineups. When you look at their statistics so far in June, the Twins have a 190 isolated power and a 121 WRC plus. The Guardians have a 120 ISO and a 91 WRC plus. The Twins are just tearing the cover off the baseball right now, and I think Cal Quantrill, who's a very contact-oriented pitcher, is going to have a hard time getting through this red-hot lineup right now. So I think the Twins just outscore the Guardians tonight in what probably won't end up being a pitcher's duel.
What's your money line bet tonight, Fryer?
Yeah, so I'm actually feeling the Rockies. I know they've taken 2 from the Dodgers, and it's kind of wild to think they could do it again with Urias on the mound. But still, C.J. Cron, Charlie Blackmon, McMahon, these guys all have good numbers against Urias, and they've done well against left-handed pitching by and large this season. And, of course, they've been better against left-handed pitching at home, top 10 in ISO and WOBA against left-handed pitching at home. And then when you look at Urias too, I mean, he gives up a lot of fly balls. I think it was like 41% or something last year, but this year he's at a career high 47.8% fly ball rate too. And Marquez actually shut down the Dodgers earlier in the season. I know it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do it again, but he's done well against the Dodgers throughout the course of his career. And most of these Dodger hitters don't have good numbers against him.
And that's the biggest total for tonight's slate, by the way. Dodgers-Rockies, 11.5. Is there a total that you think is worth targeting, Nick?
Yeah, so the Reds-Cubs one, I was kind of blown away by. It's set at 7.5, and we got Green and Steele squaring off in this one. These guys actually met up earlier in the season. I think it was towards the end of May. 25 runs were scored in that game. Now, I don't expect that to replicate itself this time out, but pretty simply here, both of these guys, in 10 of their 14 respective starts, the over has hit in those games. 7 of Steele's last 9 starts and 5 of Green's last 6 starts. So for me, 7.5, I understand these aren't 2 like offensive juggernauts, but I'm blown away by this total. It's way too low.
Gary, and which total catches your eye here in the DK Sportsbook, going over or under it too?
Yeah, that was actually my number 1 pick. So I'm going to move to my second pick, which was the Jays and Red Sox to go under 8.5. You do obviously have 2 of the best offenses in baseball in this contest. However, the Dome is likely going to be closed in Toronto tonight. That tends to suppress run scoring just a tad. And you've also got 2 of the hottest pitchers in the American League going against each other, Nick Pivetta and Alek Manoah. Manoah has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in 12 of his 14 starts this season. That's why he's got a 2.05 ERA. Nick Pivetta's last 10 starts, 1.85 ERA, allowing just 0.7 home runs per 9. So I think that both of those starters are in such a good place right now that they can keep this game low scoring. I will say, as opposed to just the standard game total of 8.5, I would probably rather attack this either first 5, which is 4.5 to the under, or no run in the first, which is only minus 115 to the under. Both these bullpens kind of scare me right now. So you might want to take the late innings out of the equation here if you're looking to bet the under in this game.
All right, last one for you here, guys. What's a prop that could be worth your time and attention tonight on the 7-game main slate? Gary?
I'm really surprised with the number for this one. Michael Kopech to record over 15.5 outs. If you don't include the start against Texas a couple weeks ago where he left with an injury in the first inning, he's thrown at least 6 innings in 5 of his last 7 starts because he's just really good. And it wasn't happening early in the season because he was still kind of transitioning out of that short spring training. He'd been a reliever for most of his career, et cetera, et cetera. He's built up, and he can work deep into games. And the Angels, you know, for as good a game as Shohei Ohtani had last night, I know Mike Trout's been hitting a lot of home runs lately. In June, this lineup has just been absolutely terrible. They have a 281 WOBA since June 1st. The only 2 teams in baseball with a worse number than that figure are the Tigers and the Athletics. That's not the kind of company you want to be keeping. So I think Kopech can easily work past 15.5 outs in this game, and it is plus 135 for him to go over this number.
All right, Fryer, what are you feeling here in the prop department tonight?
I do have a pitcher's outs recorded prop as well. Sandy Alcantara over 18.5 outs recorded. I know that the Cardinals have been, better against right-handed pitching this month, but Sandy Alcantara has been good against anybody. Doesn't matter who he's going up against. In 11 of his 15 outings, he has recorded 19 plus outs this season. I know last time out he struggled, but I actually liked to back a good pitcher coming off a rough outing. And also, it was a rough outing against a team that he faced back-to-back times. And I know the Mets haven't been like the Mets that they were in May and April, but still a tough lineup to navigate, especially in consecutive outings. Sandy Alcantara over 18.5 outs tonight against the Cardinals.
All right, dudes. We're going to talk some DFS on the diamond coming up. Paul Bruno and Matt Meiselman, Gary, and he will be joining us a little later. We'll ask him how he feels after you called him an idiot, and he proved you wrong on that. But coming up after this break, we have we're going to look at some NBA MVP odds, some futures here. There's some news to break down right after this. There is no better time than now to look ahead to some NBA MVP odds for next season. And these are the most bet players right now on the DraftKings Sportsbook. None of them should come as a major surprise. I don't know. Damien Lillard could probably use a little bit of help out west. DraftKings contributors, Jeff Pratt, DK Nations, Chinmay Vaidya, RotoWire's Nick Whalen, they are here to help me look at some NBA futures bets. And I want to start here with the MVP odds because, Nick, we've talked about it on this show. So it's not only word on the street, but everyone who watches this show understands that you have a problem with these odds. And the problem is what?
The problem is, one, they just include way too many players. I'm wondering who is putting money on, Kevin Porter Jr. at plus 100,000 to win the MVP next season. What sequence of events would have to transpire for Kevin Porter Jr. to take home MVP? I was trying to get some back end intel from the DraftKings guys. Like, can we see, is there a watch list for people who are betting anybody who's, lower than plus 25,000? I'm just very curious as to why so many players are included, and then where's the cutoff point? Why Kevin Porter? Why Cole Anthony? Why Dylan Brooks? Like, where do you say, all right, Clint Capella at plus 300,000? That's where we have to draw the line. Okay,
but then there's also the RJ Barrett thing at plus 80,000, right?
Plus 80,000. Yeah, plus 80,000. I mean, I have long been an RJ Barrett supporter. I think the Knicks would be wise to see his long-term development through. I know it's been a little bit rocky. But still, plus 80,000. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I said, I want to see the list of people who are betting RJ Barrett. I don't care what the number is, but especially at that number.
Jeff, if you could bet anyone right now, NBA MVP next season, who you sprinkle goodness on?
I'm going to be lame here after Nick said RJ Barrett and go with the favorite, but I truly believe next season is going to be Luka Doncic's year. I think he could easily average a 28-point triple-double. He just got Christian Wood to bolster that core. I think there's a chance that they add even more through free agency. Hey, they might be open to acquiring a big-name free agent. We don't know. They're going to lose Jalen Brunson, so they'll have space to fill. Luka, he saw, I think, around a 40% usage rate last season. It's just through the roof. The Mavs made the Western Conference Finals. They could easily make the finals next year, in my opinion. I like where they're at right now at DraftKings Sportsbook to actually win an NBA title, but Luka Doncic, I think they're going to be a top 3 seed. He could easily have another huge year, take another mini step. MVP could be his.
Yeah, preseason betting favorite each of the past 2 seasons too, and still in search of what feels like an inevitable MVP award. I'll agree with you on that. Chinmay, who is your NBA MVP bet right now?
So I don't really like either of the favorites in
Nice.
Doncic and Embiid for one major reason. That's because they haven't been able to stay healthy, at least the past couple of seasons. Embiid, it's been a career thing. Doncic, the pandemic year, he played less than 60 games or around 60 games, I believe. And the past 2 years, he's been under 70 games. So it's going to be tough to bank on them to both play around that 70, 75 game mark. So I like Giannis at plus 750 and then Jokic at plus 1,000. I mean, this guy went back to back just now, and there's no sign of him slowing down. We know what Giannis Antetokounmpo can do. So those are 2 guys that I like just below that, top threshold, who could still put up excellent numbers and are going to be in the MVP conversation. If you want someone a little bit of a long shot, not quite in that, plus 80,000 range, like RJ Barrett, then you have some guys in the, 8K, 9K range, like Kyrie Irving, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell. Those guys are going to put up numbers as well. It'll probably determine, more on team success, how they do in terms of MVP odds. And then there's the guy who, we always talk about, LeBron James, sitting there at plus 2,200. And if he stays healthy last year, he probably wins the scoring title. And the Lakers probably at least make the play-in game, if not advance into the playoffs and lose in the first round. So I think LeBron is another one, a sneaky bet at plus 2,200 that you can look at if you're not feeling Doncic or Embiid.
Well, Chinmay, are those numbers you just spit off, those guys you just spit off, is that about as long as you would go on a long shot bet? Like, do you have a favorite one? Because on the DK Sportsbook, I'm not kidding you here, someone bet Clint Capella for MVP at plus 300,000.
No, I can't go Clint Capella for a variety of reasons, mostly because he's never going to be anywhere in the MVP conversation, even if he's somehow the leading scoring option for his team. So my long shot is actually a guy who has won MVP before and is going to put up big numbers. And as I mentioned, with Joel Embiid's health, we don't know where that stands going into every season. I like James Harden at plus 16,000. I think it's a little too far down from where he should be. I think he should be in that Kyrie Irving, Paul George range, plus 8,000, plus 9,000, because he has won MVP before. He is going to put up solid numbers when he's healthy. And we know that his health is more of a firm deal than Joel Embiid's. And I think the Sixers do kind of run their offense a little more through Harden this season. And he also understands that this is probably his last chance to make that big contract extension that he wants. There's reports that he's going to sign a smaller deal in hopes of landing that bigger deal in a few seasons. But this is kind of it for James Harden in terms of proving that he's still a superstar. And I think the odds are just way too low at this point at plus 16,000 for me to not put a little bit on James Harden winning MVP.
Nick, who's your favorite long shot MVP bet? Someone besides RJ Barrett.
Yeah, well, good luck to Clint Capella's mom, by the way, on that bet. So hopefully that turns out for her. But I think Anthony Edwards at 60-1 is interesting if you're looking for someone who, can kind of charge onto the scene and really take that next step. I mean, you could certainly see Anthony Edwards or Kermit Wiltz, I should say, making that jump. He's at 60-1. I kind of like the LeBron call at 20-1. You can see LeBron like making a point to try to get MVP. It feels like he's been trying to do that the last few years. And the Lakers have either been too terrible of a team or he's gotten hurt at the wrong time. But he's kind of always been in the discussion before things have gone awry. And if the Lakers, are able to move off of Russell Westbrook and find some semblance of success this season, LeBron's name is going to be in that mix. Again, and somebody who's not too much of a long shot, but 17-1 for Steph Curry, who, the unanimous finals MVP, certainly has plenty left in the tank. The Warriors should be really good next season. I think there's a case to be made there. But other than that, I mean, when you start getting into like the, 80, 100 type of range, I mean, maybe Paul George at, 90-1. I guess if you play out the 2022-23 NBA season 90 times, there's probably one in which Paul George is the MVP. I don't know. I don't love a lot of the numbers when you get beyond Edwards at 60-1.
Jeff, make a case for a long shot. Let's go.
Well, I was ready for Nick to come in here and make a legitimate case for RJ Barrett. And I was going to counter with Domantas Sabonis at plus 40,000. I had this full rant planned out, but I'll go with someone a little bit more realistic here. I like Damien Lillard at plus 6,000. I think he's a guy who's kind of been forgotten by a lot of people just because he didn't play for the majority of last season. But the Trailblazers are going to be good next year. They're going to be better than they have been the last couple of seasons. I really like what they've done building their core. Josh Hart is a really good piece. Jeremy Grant, great 3-and-D guy. Anthony Simons still there. I think Shaedon Sharpe can contribute a little bit, but he's more just there to learn under Dame for a couple of seasons. Yusuf Nurkic is still there. They have the defensive talent that they didn't have the past couple of seasons, and they're just better. Their potential's better. Damian Lillard, we know as long as he stays healthy, he's going to put up 27, 28 a night. The assists might be a little bit higher too. So, hey, maybe the Blazers sneak into a top 3, top 4 seed, and he gets some votes.
Okay, well, we covered a good amount of NBA news yesterday with Julian Edlow, guys. We talked John Wall's buyout. We talked about Kyrie Irving opting in, and now you got Russell Westbrook also reportedly deciding to return to the Lakers, a whopping $47.1 million option. I don't blame him for opting into that. He's actually going to be the second highest paid player in the league, just $1 million behind Steph Curry. How much more do you expect from Westbrook next season? I mean, it can't be much worse than what we saw last season, Jeff.
Yeah, to use the words of one of our other favorite point guards, very brave of Russell Westbrook to opt into that $47 million. He's different. He's people who are normal. He's just daring to be different. But Westbrook, I don't know what to expect. To be completely honest with you, the Lakers are such a train wreck. They don't have a lot of flexibility with their roster moving forward, so I'm not expecting huge changes. Obviously, there was that very slim time period where some people were convinced that Kyrie was going to opt out and sign on the MLE, and that would have changed a lot, but it didn't happen. So for the most part, they're going to be rolling back in the majority of their core, and Westbrook's going to be better. He's going to be better. He's got such an intense play style that sometimes it can take a little bit longer for him to fit seamlessly into a system. And I'm not saying he's going to fit seamlessly. I'm just saying if he can focus on working on the defense more and instead of forcing everything, just going back to picking his spots, operating around the rim, in the mid-range. Obviously, his athleticism is not where it used to be. But I think as he gets a little bit more acclimated to playing with LeBron, playing with Anthony Davis, if he can stay healthy, the results are going to be a bit better. Not expecting a huge jump. Think he's still going to struggle quite a bit, but not as bad or as meme-worthy as last year.
Yeah, Nick, is he going to be able to shed the Westbrook nickname here? I mean, he really did struggle to fit in with both Davis and James dealing with injuries.
I don't think he's going to be able to. I don't know what evidence we got last year or this offseason that suggests that Russell Westbrook is interested in, for the first time in his career, having any ounce of self-awareness, right? I mean, I think that's what's so frustrating if you're a Lakers fan. It's not that Westbrook, has struggled to fit in. It's that he's struggled to acknowledge or, give any semblance of, understanding that he is the problem here. And, bringing in a rookie head coach in Darvin Ham, I don't know that that's necessarily going to solve anything. We'll see. We got to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. I think Darvin Ham has said a lot of the right things since being hired by the Lakers, but, we have no idea how he's going to handle this situation. And a lot of coaches say the right things at a press conference. And then when you get, when you start coaching a team, especially one that has LeBron James, you don't necessarily have the kind of autonomy that you think you do going into a job like that. So I'm extremely down on Westbrook, extremely down on the Lakers' chances to do anything when he's on the roster. I think the Lakers' best chance is to obviously try to trade him to one of these teams that has cap space, give up whatever remaining draft assets you have after the Anthony Davis deal, or, buy him out midseason, dump him at the trade deadline. Like the Westbrook on the Lakers is not going to work at this point. Yep. Maybe he could go, go to Detroit, go to Washington, go somewhere like that where he could just go, be the man for 35 minutes a night. But I have no faith whatsoever that the Lakers could be a successful team with Russell Westbrook on the roster. Zero faith.
Chinmay, it's been reported that Pelinka and Ham have had multiple meetings with Westbrook and have been honest about his role in the team and that he needs to be a defense-first player. I mean, do you see him buying into that?
I like the point that Nick made at the end there. Let's be very clear. Russell Westbrook has not returned to the Lakers yet. He has returned to $47 million. He has chosen that paycheck. The Lakers are going to be trying to trade him. There's no evidence from last season or even in the past few seasons where Russell Westbrook has jumped among teams to suggest that he's suddenly going to change his approach. The only way that I see Russell Westbrook working for the Los Angeles Lakers is if he becomes the league's most expensive sixth man, because he cannot play on the same floor as Anthony Davis and LeBron James. The fit is not there. The floor spacing is not there. You couple that with Davis's reluctance to play center for some reason, and you have a world of problems with that roster. So I think the Lakers will be better just because of health, with Davis and James being more healthy. But I can't see a world where Russell Westbrook changes his game at this point in his career to suddenly improve that fit. And I think the only way that Russell Westbrook works for the Lakers is if he comes off the bench. Maybe he's able to close games with Davis and James. I don't know. But for starting the season, if he stays on the team, which is a huge if in my opinion, I think he has to be moved if they're serious about prying open this last window of LeBron James's, career. I think that he will be moved by the beginning of the season. But if he stays on the Lakers, it's not going to be about defense. It's not going to be about the shooting. It's just going to be that he can't be on the same floor as Davis and James for the majority of the game, because that hasn't worked, and there's no evidence to suggest that it would work.
All right, you three, tremendous work. We have run out of time. Again, free agency opening up around the NBA tomorrow, so we'll have you back, I'm sure, to talk about some of the additions and how that impacts odds on the DK Sportsbook. And speaking of that, we'll look at some future win totals, division win totals for some NFL teams with Jeff Ulrich right after this. All right, everybody. Good news. Jeff Ulrich has decided to show up today, DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich, because we need him to look at some win total futures for NFL teams. But before we start looking at division win totals here, Jeff, we had some news yesterday afternoon. The Commanders doing something right, signing Terry McLaurin to a fat contract extension worth upwards of $71 million. Still has Carson Wentz as his quarterback. So I guess what kind of success do you see Scary Terry having in Washington next season?
There's the rub, Emerson. Carson Wentz still attached to the Washington Commanders. This was their big upgrade over the offseason. Unfortunately for Scary Terry, it's not really an upgrade. Carson Wentz, the least accurate quarterback, over 600 attempts via Warren Sharp Football on Twitter over the last 2 seasons. I don't really know how much of a bump that Carson Wentz gives Terry McLaurin. Now, you were right about one thing. It's smart by the Washington Commanders here. In my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's opinions, Terry McLaurin is an elite wide receiver. He's just kind of an elite wide receiver in waiting. Like, I think there's a lot more from a fantasy potential even that we can get from Terry McLaurin. I mean, he's a guy who just has a ton of success in a lot of different areas. Man-to-man, he really excels, has one of the most elite success rates versus man-to-man coverage, but he improved in other areas as well last year. The Commanders do use him all across the field, much like a Justin Jefferson or even a Cooper Kupp. It's just the success rate, the catch rate, it's just not as high as those guys because look at the Commanders quarterbacks over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
No offense to Taylor Heineke. Some offense to Carson Wentz because he doesn't seem to be that nice a guy, but it just really he's not attached to an elite quarterback, and I think if he was, you'd see Terry McLaurin compete for a top 5 fantasy season.
No, it's a good point. His 222 receptions are most in franchise history through a player's first 3 seasons, and it's even more impressive, yes, when you consider the revolving door at quarterback. He's caught passes from 8 different players. Jeff, where would you draft him? Where would you draft him in fantasy drafts?
Oh. He's a player I want to take a chance on. Like, he's a player I want to go up and reach and get for and grab when he's still there in the third round or something, or if you're coming around the turn, you say, you know what, I'm going to go and grab Terry McLaurin so no one else can get him. But, realistically, we have to be somewhat, just settle down and say Carson Wentz is still the quarterback here. Is this going to be the spot, or is this going to be like another Allen Robinson situation where, yes, the talent is apparent? I think where he's going right now is probably, again, like if you want to stretch and get him, sure, take him a little bit before certain players, but stretching before him before the third round is probably it's probably just too much of a stretch. I'm just not sure how much more Carson Wentz is going to bring out of this quarterback. McLaurin's a great player. There's lots to give, but I wouldn't touch him before the third round.
Okay, let's start talking now about a few other teams who are expected to win more football games than the Commanders this season. A little fun game over-under. We're going to look at teams' division win totals for 2022 on the DK Sportsbook, Jeffrey. So let's start with TB12 and the Bucs. A division win total of 4.5, meaning they need to go 5-1 inside the NFC South to hit this bet. Are you going over or under, dude?
I mean, betting on a team to go 5-1 in the division, it's just, I think it's a bit of a fool's errand. Like, even though the Tampa Bay is clearly the best team in the division, I get that. But to go 5-1, like in the NFL, in any 6-game stretch against any 6 teams, that's a big ask. The NFL is full of variance. It's full of referees who miss plays. It's full of weird weather changes. It's just full of like weird schedules and stuff like that, and weird things happen. So asking for a team to go 5-1, no, you have to take the under here. And here's a very, very good reason why you should take the under here. The last game of the season, Tampa plays the Atlanta Falcons. And you say, well, it's the Falcons. Who cares, Jeff? But guess what? Tampa Bay, if they're already in the division lead, they ain't playing Tom Brady. They're resting their starters that week. That could be like a third stringer against Atlanta. What if the Bucs go into that game and they're 4-1 and you need the win to go over, and they're marching out Kyle Trask and company? That's not a situation you want to be in, man. So 4-2, absolutely I could see, but no, 5-1, you got to go under.
Yeah, they're going to get torched by that rookie quarterback Desmond Ridder there in Atlanta. Let's go now from the NFC South to the AFC South. Let's look at the Tennessee Titans here, Ulrich, who won the division last year, actually behind the Colts when it comes to odds. So Colts minus 125, Titans plus 170. Tennessee's division win total set at 3.5. Which way you leaning?
Oh boy. I mean, I know most of our viewers who watched and said, oh, this is an easy one. It's the Titans. Jeff's going over. But guess what? Just like Hollywood Hogan walking into the ring on WCW, I'm going under. We're fading the Titans here next year. Look, everything that went right for Tennessee, just in terms of, like win totals, getting the number 1 seed in the division, getting A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry back for the playoffs, that all went right, and they still couldn't capitalize on it. Now they've lost A.J. Brown. Derrick Henry is like, the injuries are building up. He's just taking too many carries. And now we're asking a team who they're the best they've done in their division over the last 3 years. Mike Vrabel and company went 4-2 last year against the division, but the 2 years before that, they went 3-3. Now we're asking to take pay some juice for them to go over 3.5 wins here. No, I don't want to do that at all. The Colts are a very, very good team. And the Titans, a little bit lucky against the Colts next year. Now Carson Wentz isn't there to turn the ball over a ton. Matt Ryan's a better game manager. Jonathan Taylor's a little bit more experienced. I don't want to take the Titans to even split that series. The Jags are going to be a little competitive.
Yeah.
The Texans are what they are. I'm not taking the Titans over anything next year. I'm going to take them under here. And at the plus money, I actually think that's a good bet.
Yeah, and if Tannehill starts struggling, you know who's coming in? Malik Willis, baby. Finally, we obviously can't talk about the AFC South here, dude, without discussing America's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their win total for AFC South games is set at 2.5. Oh, can they go over? Why is the answer yes? You're hammering this.
Look.
Yeah,
we've got a solo me here. I can say whatever I want.
Yes.
There's no Reed here to rein me in and make fun of me. It's you hosting. It's what day? It's Wednesday.
Yep.
The John Deere Classic starts tomorrow. Of course, we're going over on the Jags, 2.5 wins. We got Doug Peterson coming in. He's going to be chucking the ball all around the field. He's going to get Trevor Lawrence's head on straight. They've signed Christian Kirk for $1 billion per reception, but that's fine. Christian Kirk's a good slot receiver. He's going to open things up for guys like Evan Ingram as well to move the ball a little bit. Look, we got 2 games against the Texans here. I just went over why you shouldn't really be that bullish on the Titans. Yeah, the Jags can grab 3 division wins here. I absolutely believe they can. I like Doug Peterson as a head coach. He was the smart one who said, hey, Nick Foles, take the reins and beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. I think the Jags will be half decent this year.
Thank you.
I don't think they're going to be great or anything like that or necessarily challenge for the division. I know Pierce has them labeled for a Super Bowl winner, but we can go over 2.5 wins in the division. This AFC South isn't quite as strong at the top as people think, at least after the Colts.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence praising the leadership of Doug Peterson, and also Trevor Lawrence designing new bottles for Gatorade as well. I mean, he's just having one hell of an offseason, I guess,
And
if you don't count the
investing in
crypto thing. Yeah.
And he's investing in crypto and losing some. Well,
Yeah,
whatever.
he's
it's fine.
lost a
You
fat
can't
chunk
win
of
them
money.
all, right? I mean, it's fine,
Nope.
Trevor Lawrence.
Nope, still our Lord and Savior. And stick around, Jeff, because let's talk some John Deere Classic, because I mean, some of those guys are starting to drop out of the field. I don't even know who half
You didn't
these.
get to my CFL bet. Next time.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, we are out of time. Yeah, you could talk about it tonight on the slate at 5 o'clock.
Perfect.
We're going to cover the bases. So DFS talk around the Major League Baseball right after this. All right, let's take a gander here at the top 5 fantasy performers around Major League Baseball last night. Look at the man at the top, Patrick Corbin. So he matched a career high with 12 strikeouts. This guy was, I think, 3-10. Like entering the game, he allowed 1 run in 8 innings for Washington, which has won 3 in a row and 6 of 8. And Matty Meiselman, one of the dudes here to talk some fantasy tonight, along with Paul Bruno. We had Gary on earlier in the show, and he admitted to thinking you were a nincompoop, an idiot, for saying, no, you should play Patrick Corbin last night. And now look at you. You're an absolute genius.
I really am. I'm just a genius. No, I mean, this is not what I expected. I thought he'd have like 6 or 7 Ks and be a good value play. This is insane. I don't know how he did it, but I'm certainly happy about it. I'll say that.
Well, keep it coming, man. Nearly 40 DK fantasy points. Let's go top DFS plays for tonight. Just looking at the main 7-game slate. So first base, here we go. Best DFS hitter. Who's it going to be, Matty?
So if it's cash games, it's the Dodgers, but I don't think I can pick them because everyone's going to pick them. So I'll just go with Byron Buxton, who really I've been picking all week. And it's just because I think the matchups that he's had against the Guardians are really good ones. And I think the ownership on him just has to be a little low because there's so many teams in great spots, with specifically the Dodgers at Coors Field. I think he just gets overlooked. So Buxton has struggled a little bit lately. He's missed some games. He's been in and out of the lineup. Injuries are always a concern with him, but he did homer last night. I don't think that there's anything seriously wrong with him. He's just a great hitter that I don't think enough people are going to play.
Paul, who do you like tonight?
I'll give you 2 guys that you have to have in your lineup tonight based on what they've done most recently. Alejandro Kirk has been a real revelation to the major leagues, I think, this year, but we've known about him for a while here in Toronto. He's been on fire with the Jays, and the entire offense is warming up around him finally. He'll cost you $4,700 against Nick Pivetta, but should be worth it. He has 10 hits in his last 22 ABs, punctuated by an OPS of over 1.6 in that stretch. And then there's Kyle Schwarber, worth a look against righty Kyle Wright, who's been roughed up in his last 2 starts, giving up 21 hits in only 11 and a third innings. Meanwhile, Schwarber is on a tear himself with hits in 8 of his last 9 games. That includes 4 long balls and 10 RBIs. He costs $5,300 tonight.
All right, second base, Paul, best DFS pitcher. Who are you targeting?
Look, it's best versus worst in an NL matchup. We already have heard about the Dodgers in this segment, thanks to Matt. They're going to be big ownership on a lot of guys here, but I don't know how you avoid picking Julio Urias tonight. He costs only $8,400, which is significantly less than a couple of other big names that will be with big ownership in Ohtani and Alcantara. Urias comes into tonight's matchup on the heels of 4 consecutive dominant starts. He's covered 23 and a third innings pitched. During that time, he's only given up 11 hits and only 4 earned runs while striking out 29. Those are video game numbers. I also like the Twins' Dylan Bundy to have a big night at Cleveland. He costs only $5,900, so it strikes me as a nice value play. But coming off consecutive quality starts for the first time this season, allowing only 8 hits and 2 earned runs over his last 2 outings, and he looks like a sneaky good value in this key divisional matchup.
Okay, Matty, this is a position you shined in last night. Hook us up.
Yeah, I'm going to pick another struggling mid-price pitcher and hope that we can recreate some of the magic. Ranger Suarez actually did have a decent start last time out, but overall for the season, the results have been kind of mediocre. And normally you wouldn't want to pick a left-handed starter against the Braves, but the 2 guys that you most worry about, Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ozzie Albies, are both injured right now. I know Dansby Swanson has had a great season too, so I'm not going to call this an easy matchup. I just think it's an easier matchup than most people will realize. And Suarez is just cheaper than a lot of, I think, what will be the popular pitchers tonight, like Paul mentioned. Ohtani in particular. Hunter Green, I also think, will be a popular option. So I think Suarez is going to be less owned than them, and he's also cheaper than them. I think the Braves are going to scare some people, but Suarez is a decent pitcher. He had a really good year last year, and he's south of 7K. I think he does make for a really good value play at pitcher tonight.
Well, Matt, third base, someone you're fading.
Yeah, so Paul mentioned this too. Kyle Wright is a guy that I just don't think you can play at his price tag in the 9,000s, especially even without Bryce Harper. The Phillies still have a really good offense. I think they're in contention for one of the best offenses in baseball when Harper's healthy. Even without him, they're still solidly above average. And Kyle Wright's had a really good season, but there's not much in his track record prior to this year to suggest that he's just an ace. I think he's a good pitcher, but this is such an extreme price tag given the fact that it's on the road and they're facing a good offense. And I don't think it's going to be true that no one plays him. I think some amount, like you could argue no one will have him, so therefore maybe you look to Kyle Wright, but I think he'll be popular enough that you just stay away. Like there are so many good cheaper pitchers, and Wright just, I think, misses the cut.
Paul, who are you staying away from tonight?
Couple of, well, I'm going to look at batter Eduardo Escobar for the Mets. He should take a pass on tonight's game against Justin Verlander. First of all, he's going through a stretch where he has only 4 hits and 11 strikeouts over his last 9 starts. Those are terrible numbers, and it only will get worse if he goes against the crafty righty tonight. And it also looks like a matchup in another game where I favor Sandy Alcantara over the power bats of Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. The Marlins righty has dominated both sluggers in head-to-head history between the two. And he's got to be looking to make amends for a rare poor start. So I look for a big bounce-back performance from him tonight.
All right, gentlemen, take us home here, Paul, with your best DFS value play tonight.
I got a lot to say here. I look for a big night from a couple of Dodger bats tonight and feasting on Colorado starter German Marquez. I'll be stacking the likes of Cody Bellinger and their Swiss Army knife Chris Taylor, both of them priced at $4,000. Zach Greinke is having his worst season since his rookie year way back in 2005. And that continues a slide that began 2 years ago. He's lost it, folks. He looks very hittable these days, and the Texas Rangers should have some fun with him tonight. I look for veterans Cole Calhoun and Corey Seager to lead them today, and they can both point to a lot of success in head-to-head histories against this guy, too. But finally, I'm sorry, Emerson, I've got to do this. I'm looking forward to tonight's final game of the Red Sox visit to Toronto, where the home 9 have cooled off the hottest team in the majors. The Jays will be pumped up for the sweep behind their young stud, Alek Manoah. I think this is a great spot to go with a guy like Kevin Biggio, who's had a couple of multi-hit games in the past week and looks like he's sharpened up his batting eye once again. He looks like a solid on-base guy in the middle of a potent Jays attack, and he has a career ledger against Pivetta that's pretty impressive, too, with a couple of homers and an OPS north of 1.4. You can get him for $3,200 tonight.
Matty, the best DFS value play in baseball tonight is who and why?
Well, I think it's all the Dodgers, but again, I'll pick a different answer because I think that's too obvious. I'm going to have to go against Paul a little with this one because I do think the Rockies hitters, even though Julio Urias is a good pitcher, I think the Rockies hitters are just all underpriced. And specifically Ryan McMahon, who's only $3,100. McMahon's actually pretty good against lefties. He's a neutral platoon splits guy for his career. And I think that the fact that it's lefty-lefty usually makes people not want to play almost anybody, really. But overall, I think you can make an argument that all of the Rockies are value plays. Clayton Kershaw is a better pitcher than Urias. They did well against him last night. I just think the Coors Field effect is strong enough that even if you bring in a good pitcher, when the Rockies are cheap, it's still wrong. Like, these guys are all short of $5,000 in salary, and McMahon is way short of that. So I think he's my favorite, but you can make a case for, I think, just about any hitter in this game, really, on both sides of it.
All right, gentlemen, appreciate the help. We'll do the DFS thing on the links, talking John Deere Classic right after this. All right, it's time to price check for the John Deere Classic. I mean, Steve Stricker dropping out yesterday. I don't know who the hell is left in this tournament, but that's why we're bringing in DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich. He has returned, and RotoWire's senior golf writer Len Hochberg. Okay, looking at the prices here on DraftKings, Len, Webb Simpson is the man here. Top price tag on the board. He is 10-6, one of four guys that'll cost you at least 10 grand. Is he someone you're willing to pay that much for here?
Boy, talk about a big fish in a little pond. Yeah, Webb Simpson, we don't normally see him in this tournament. I'm not quite sure why he's even here, but yeah, this tournament is bad field-wise, even for the John Deere, which usually gets a handful of top 50 guys. They have none this year. Webb Simpson, the top guy at number 58. This is going to be a real crapshoot this week. This is going to be really super hard to get 6 for 6. It's hard to get 6 for 6 any week. We could see some guys who some of us have never heard of on the first page of the leaderboard. I'm inclined to stay away from most of the big names and certainly the top names in the 10,000s. There's none of them that appeals to me. Webb Simpson is not for me this week.
What do you think here, Jeff? I mean, your friendly Canadian companion, Adam Hadwin's there, but how about can you resist the urge for Theegala after last week?
No, I mean, I'll disagree a little bit with Len here. I mean, I think Webb Simpson. I think you should grab hold to Webb Simpson and hold on to him tight and give him a nice squeeze and pretend he's like the life jacket and you're out in the middle of the ocean this week, because that's pretty much the only anchor, the flotation device there is. If we can't rely on Webb Simpson, who's gained like strokes on approach in 3 straight starts now, was 13th at the Travelers last week. He's the highest ranked golfer in the field at 58. And I think he's here mainly because of that reason. He wants to get back in the top 50 of the official world golf rankings. But if we can't rely on Webb Simpson on a shorter course against this field, what else is there to rely on in this world, Emerson? So yes, I'll eat the chalk here. I'll take Webb Simpson at 10-6 because quite frankly, where else are we going to spend our money? Give me some Webb Simpson this week. Go overweight. Stick him in all your lineups. Webb, at the very least, seems just destined to top 20 here, just with the blindfold on. So we'll take that. We'll move on. You can throw some random guys that you think might have a chance and probably will pop up below 7K. But Webb, fine to build around. He's really the only reliable player, in my opinion, in this tournament.
Wait, Jeffrey, you telling me JT Poston is not that reliable coming off a T2 with the Travelers? He's going to cost $8K. He's trending upwards, right?
He's super reliable, Emerson, to follow that top 10 up, which he usually does with like 3 missed cuts. JT Poston is a great pop player. He's a great spike player. When he shows up with top 10s, and I love that about him. But when he doesn't show up, it gets ugly real quick. So, yeah, you can take a shot with Poston this week. Not really for me. Again, just one of those players coming off a decent finish that looks a little bit overpriced at 8K. In that range, I would rather go down to John Huh, who's been really consistent. Actually, another player you probably can rely on this week. John Huh, really consistent tee to green, 7,800. Really good setup for him, too. But Poston, if you are sprinkling in Poston, just make sure it's GPPs only, because if the putter doesn't show up, I mean, he will miss the cut. Absolutely. So.
Len, how much are you going to consider rostering Poston in DFS?
I'm still trying to get over the Webb Simpson speech. It was fantastic. It was stupendous. I would vote for Webb Simpson for office or Jeff for office or something after that. It really moved me. But I happen to like JT Poston this week. And interestingly, when I filed my RotoWire picks column on Monday night, JT Poston was not in it. And I think I whiffed. JT Poston has finished top 10 in 3 of his last 7 tournaments. And he's sort of come out of nowhere, because from last summer into this spring, about a 9-month period, he was missing 2 out of every 3 cuts. But something has turned around for him in the last 2 months or so. Jeff is right about the putter, and he was second on tour in putting last year. But this season, he's only 82nd. But 2 months ago, he was about 150th. So the putter has gotten hot, and JT Poston does rely on his putter, and it's happening now. And this field is weak, and $8,000 is a very fair price.
Yeah, it is a weak field, Len. So where are you looking to for value here?
Yeah, that's a tough call. And I'm probably going to mention 2 words that maybe have never been mentioned consecutively on the Sweat ever before. Martin Trainer. Martin Trainer is $6,000, and Martin Trainer is not a great golfer, but on a week where everybody is $1,000, $1,500 more than they are most weeks, Martin Trainer went the other way. $6,000 is for a guy who's, from the senior tour coming into play this week, or the high school kid getting a sponsor invite, or some guys making 2 cuts out of 18. Martin Trainer's 132nd in the FedEx. He's close to keeping his card. He makes about half his cuts. His world ranking, while in the 400s, is better than about half this field. Martin Trainer's 9th in strokes gained putting. Always has a puncher's chance. I don't see how he's 6,000. He should be much higher. You asked me about value. He is way undervalued. Vote Martin Trainer in November.
I love the passion. Jeff, this is not a star-studded field. How do you find value here? Because this is where you can separate yourself from the pack.
Oh, absolutely. And look, most weeks we kind of laugh when we bring up some of the mid-price guys, but I think that you can get a little bit crazy with this field. Where has Martin Trainer popped up this year? It's a great call by Len. He shouldn't be 6K. He's popped up in weaker fields in Mexico and Corrales. So this is the kind of field where he takes advantage of, and the strokes gained putting. He should probably be closer to 7K than 6K. So that is a good value in this field. And I think guys like Ches Reavie and John Ho will be the values that people actually get on, that will get chalky, because you look at what those 2 players have done over the last 5 starts. They've been very consistent. They've been competing well against elite fields, Reavie and John Ho, and they're still under 8K. So I think people would really latch on to those 2. And I think they are good values for this field. A little bit in the Webb Simpson vein, those are kind of the players you should rely on. But I'll go down a little bit further and a couple younger guys. Chris Gotterup at 7,300. This is a very talented young college player. He's College Player of the Year, won a couple College Player awards in 2022. He's trying to get his PGA Tour status through sponsors exemptions rather than going to the Korn Ferry Tour. This is a big event for Chris Gotterup, and he's made 2 cuts in a row. And one of those cuts was at the U.S. Open. Now, I think that you'll see him pop up for a top 20 this week at the very least. Again, talent is going to win out eventually here with Gotterup in these weaker fields. Where did he get his best finish so far? T7 in Corrales, weaker field, basically the same as this week. I think you see him pop up again. 7,300, a very fair price there. And then Lee Hodges, another player who's played pretty well lately, 6,900. I don't like him quite as much as Gotterup, but I think for that price, under 7K for Lee Hodges is actually very fair in this field.
All right, finally, let's just get your pick for the best DFS play here in the John Deere Classic, Jeff, and good luck.
Okay, I'm not really switching here because Patrick Rogers kind of definitely still on my betting card. But I'm going to go Christian Bezuidenhout at 9,100. You kind of sit back and you look, and Bezuidenhout's a multiple-time winner on the Euro Tour. He's a great putter. He just finished top 15 at Colonial, a very similar kind of style course. And we've seen Zach Johnson, Stricker have success there too. And I look at his 9,100 salary for DFS, and you wonder why this guy's priced under McCarthy and McNeil and Howell III. And I think that he's actually a really good value. I think he's actually a better player than at least 2 of those players I just mentioned right now. And I think that Bazenu is going to have a chance this week. I think another player who we've seen play very well against these Corn Ferry Tour type fields.
All right, Len, bring us home, dude.
Yeah, very hard to. I could easily see someone in the 7,000s or lower 8,000s winning this tournament. Very hard to pinpoint them and target them. So I'm going to go higher up at $8,900 at Scott Stallings. He's about 9th or 10th on the board. He's been an all or nothing guy this year. He's missed a lot of cuts, but he's had some high finishes as well, including last week at the Travelers. I would have liked him even without the high finish at the Travelers. His big problem is driving accuracy. He's like 170th on tour. I think that's not going to be an issue this week. You can basically hit it wherever you want this week and then go from there. I don't know if he's a cash game play, but I think he could be a sneaky GPP play. And again, there are a bunch of guys higher than him on the board.
All right, gentlemen, that is how you do what you just did. Thanks so much for the help. We're back here live in studio, a Thirsty Thursday edition of The Sweat, 11 o'clock Eastern time. Jeff, we'll talk much more golf tonight. Reed T. Fowler apparently deciding to work again. So the gorgeous golf gurus, 5 o'clock on the slate.
I'm dropping a fire CFL bet tonight, too.
All right, hell yeah. Let's go. We'll see everyone then.